talking to, well, going off Discord, you go by Strange Octopus. But if you want to introduce yourself, you can.
Sure. I'm Christopher Lee Zammit, and I've worked on a number of films, most notably to the Transformer community would be Transformers Dark of the Moon, Transformers Age of Extinction, and Transformers The Last Night. I almost forgot about that one. It's pretty... yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That I spent a year of my life on, so...
Oh, my God.
Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked at ILM a couple of times. The first time was for Tomorrowland, and I had a piece of another movie. Oh, it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I also worked a little bit on Transformers Age of Extinction. In a very minor role. It was sort of like the majority of my work was on Tomorrowland, and then I'd also do like 10, 20 hours a week on the Transformers film. In that film, I basically did some smaller things like, weapons for Optimus Prime and, fixing a piece of Bumblebee here and, doing a boat, building whatever needed to be done. Since I wasn't on the show full time, I just sort of like kicked in wherever I could help, whatever the team needed. And then I went back for Transformers The Last Night, and there the first task I had was to paint Megatron, and I also painted Hot Rod, World War II Hot Rod, and I also painted, oddly enough, another robot, a little-known robot from that movie. It was like Shipbot. It was like a little razor that turns into like a blue robot.
I know you're talking about. I'm aware of that commercial.
Yeah, so that was also for ILM as well. And then again, I was also working a bit on Star Wars Rogue One.
What was it like working with Michael Bay? Was it fun, or was it hard and frustrating?
I've worked on 4 Michael Bay films so far. I wouldn't say they're frustrating. They're exhilarating. He knows what he likes, and he's very good at getting what he needs for the show. And he was a very good client for the company, so he was always there a lot, which is great in the studio. So he was really sort of hands-on and sort of easy to work with in terms of being accessible and being knowledgeable at what he wanted. There were some times where it was a bit like he would get so excited about something and then announce something online, and we were then scrambling. It's like, oh my goodness, like we didn't know about this. We had to correct things. Case in point would be when Megatron had the red on his face. Oh, yeah. That was something that we did not know about when he launched it online. We were just like, he showed a picture of Megatron that had like this red stuff on his face, and we're like, whoa, what's that? Because that, that's not on my model. I'd already done the head by then of Megatron. And so we were just sort of like, hey, what's this, Michael? And, and he said, well, yeah, you guys got to figure out what that is. And so, and then we did some great concepts. It's great, like story pitches, not really story pitches, but just sort of like elements of what that could be, which he incorporated into the story. So it's very collaborative. It's very, it keeps you on your toes. But I definitely enjoy working.
That's actually really fun to know. And that the whole red paint bit, it's, from my understanding, I thought it was just, I don't know, just paint. That's what everyone calculated.
It kind of ended up kind of being paint. Like some of the things they were saying, like they asked, like, what could this be? And so we pitched a number of ideas. A couple of us had, we knew the Transformers lore.
Yeah.
So we were like, oh, this is like, this is Unicron blood. And, this could be Unicron blood because the Unicron's in the story. actually in the comic, Unicron's blood does have these properties of like sort of mind control, and it's like we also pitched some dark energon. Some of the things that were right from the universe, and in the end, they were just sort of like, "Nah, let's just make it red paint."
Oh, well, yeah, I've always wondered about that because when Optimus had it in the movie, he's just like a zombie, while Megatron's like, yeah, I'm me, I'm able to think for myself.
Yeah, but he was answering to Contessa though. He was definitely he was under. There's larger questions that were unanswered, like how did he turn back into Megatron?
That was something that bothered me, like with the new CGI you guys were doing and everything. I was like ecstatic to see Galvatron in it because the CGI in TF4 was good, but TF5 looked like it was a lot more fleshed out. So I was really ecstatic to see Galvatron in it, and unfortunately he wasn't in it.
Galvatron was cool. We got Welker to do the voice again, which is amazing. But I do have to say, in terms of Megatron, I wasn't really, just as an artist, I was happy that it was Megatron, and I was also happy that it was Welker doing the voice. So it was like a kid in the candy store. So this is going to be the best Megatron ever.
It really was, and the design
for
TOK Megatron was. I, for one, when I saw it, I was like, I remember how excited I was to see Megatron coming back and stuff. It really got me excited and stuff. And I think the biggest theme for me was the whole face design. Like, it's new. I wasn't used to it because, what the Megatron designs you guys have done in the past, for the face at least, always followed that recognizability. So it was, it felt like you guys aimed more to like make it more similar to Galvatron in a sense.
Yeah, well, we had some concepts. I can't really speak to like how they came up with that look. It was originally supposed to be based on a dragon. I know that from the internet. Megatron was originally supposed to be a dragon, which is why he's got like dragon feet, etc. But that look was relatively loose in terms of the concept. So, but I loved it. I saw it. The thing I liked most about Megatron in this design was I wasn't a huge fan of the other movies. Maybe the third one wasn't bad, where he was sort of like more covered up and he turned into a truck. Even though it didn't really feel like Megatron, I just really didn't like the weird, sharp bits of the other Megatron design. I never liked how it didn't look like a coherent ship or a tank or anything. It just looked like an alien ship and a really sort of vaguely humanoid form for a robot. And I thought, this just doesn't suit my taste in terms of robots. Like, I grew up with the G1 cartoon, so I liked having the character be thick and mechanical, robust, menacing looking, and I just didn't think that the original Megatrons did that. Also, I really like the idea of Transformers robots in disguise. I came from a time where the whole fun factor was that it turned into something that you recognized, but wasn't a robot. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if you turn into a spaceship that you've never seen before, then it's not really fun, especially when it comes to the toys. So that's just my opinion. So this is the first time we got a Megatron that looked, like stocky and looked almost like a suit of armor. I got a lot of carte blanche on his design in terms of color schemes and metals. So I got to do some concepts of myself for the relief on the side of his head, which Michael Bay personally told me he liked, which was great. I wanted to make him similar to the G1 Megatron as possible. So you'll notice in the concept, there's no red, no black. It's just almost all steel. Yeah. And I took it to a level that was like, okay, this is Megatron. He's elegant. I want people to think of him as like a beautiful piece of like a Fabergé egg, or but metal but ornate. So I wanted there to be a lot of like really beautiful accent metals, like especially in his face. There's like little coppers and different, different metals. And also the one main thing that the G1 cartoon has is Megatron has black gloves and black feet, and a black like crotch piece, like a black like underwear or whatever. So you'll notice that I've put that into the model because that was like really important to me to sort of like keep him as close to G1. And Megatron also has red on the sides of his. And that's where I put in all the red. So like everything that's red on Megatron was something that I added because it was as close to G1 as I could make it.
And this is TOK Megatron, right?
What's that? This is TOK Megatron, yeah. This big boy here.
Oh, wow.
So this company actually, hang on a minute. This company actually got it pretty close.
Mm.
Hang on. My Wacom just killed the camera. Hang on. So this one, they actually got pretty close. I'm just going to unplug my Wacom for a second here. So they didn't get the black feet right. They didn't get the black hands right, or the black crotch piece, but they did get the red right, which is awesome. And you can kind of see in the back all that red.
Oh wow, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, so those are things that the elements that I got to put in. There's a lot of like beautiful accent details. There's patina, everything. So
one thing
Megatron took me about a year to paint.
One thing I've noticed about Megatron from all VS sets, especially on that guy, I remember seeing in an old concept arts that he was supposed to have a shield and not just that sword thing he had. Like,
yeah, he does. He has a shield. He's got a shield. He's got a blaster. He's got a sword.
Yeah, like I always initially thought in that scene the last night where Hound was shooting Megatron with his turret. It looks like, he was going to activate his shield, but instead he just flips his fusion cannon up and starts firing.
Yeah, I don't think they show the shield in the whole movie, do they?
No, they don't.
Yeah, it's there, though. It was made. That's for sure.
It exists. It's just unfortunate it didn't make it in the movie.
I know, but at least they put it in the toy, so that's awesome.
So, the next question is, was the team excited to work on live-action films, or were they annoyed when it was the 5th film?
We loved it. There is no better movie to work on than Transformers movies. They are so much fun to work on. I have never had so much fun painting things than I have on the show.
That's awesome.
My favorite character ever, my favorite asset I've ever painted. Mm-hmm. And I've got a long list of like really cool characters. Like I painted Slimer for Ghostbusters. I helped design Cable for Deadpool 2. I painted Baby Legs Deadpool. And my favorite of all time is Hot Rod. Hot Rod was like the most fun I've ever had painting anything.
Hot Rod was definitely a unique design this time around.
Mm-hmm.
He really was.
So, yeah, Hot Rod went through a lot of design iterations and names. He was originally called Sidekick, and I'm not sure if that was just sort of like a temporary name for him. Yeah, Hot Rod was. So here's the thing about Hot Rod. I did my best in terms of making him look cool. I tried to put flames on him. They wouldn't let me. So
what the heck?
Just know that I try to, again, I'm like really, really fond of G1. So I tried, I made a lot of like petitions to make him at least a little bit closer to the G1 that everybody knows and loves. Obviously I couldn't change the color of the car or anything like that. The cars are chosen before the robots. Mm-hmm. So Michael Bay is a big car fan, and he often will get to own one of the versions they have. They usually have 2 cars, and Michael Bay will get to keep one of them.
That's actually really cool.
So he has a collection of actual like Transformers cars, and basically he'll shoot them for like the the really like they won't get a lot of extensive driving stuff, but for any shot that they're sort of like doing an establishing shot of like the car sitting there, he will often film that one so that it's an actually screen used version of the car, but it doesn't get a lot of like drive. So he's got the one that's like looks really polished and nice, and then he's got the ones that he uses for a lot of the film. So Hot Rod was chosen to be that car. So that car was black with orange fairings. So there wasn't a lot we could do outside of that in terms of color scheme. Anytime I get a concept, anything that's I'm not shown, I have free reign to change.
Okay.
So if there's a hidden piece, it's up to me to sort of decide what that looks like. But if it's there, I need to follow the concept and make it as close as possible. So all the concepts I got, you never saw the sides of the head. So I put flames inside of his head, and they were turned down. They said, no, we're not going to have it. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm like, okay, well, I tried. But in terms of his color scheme, I got to choose a lot of that, like where the orange bits go, just making them aesthetically pleasing, painting everything from the drips and oil and grease and all that stuff. That's like a long chore. Megatron was about a year to paint, and Hot Rod was 6 months to paint. I think the Bumblebee movie proved that making them as close as they can to G1 is the right way to do it. Like, the Bumblebee movie really, for me, that was my favorite Transformers. It's like, that was the movie I've been waiting for since I was a kid.
The only thing I wish for, that the fight scenes were a little longer. That's the only thing I wish for. Because the fight scenes were definitely my favorite parts.
Yeah, but it had a lot of heart. And like, I think it was nice to finally see some of the Transformers actually get some real characterization. Like Bumblebee isn't just this sort of like default character that does quirky things every now and then, like peeing on other characters, which is bizarre. But this one, you really see the friendship between the girl and Bumblebee, and I thought that was like important. I thought, I still think that Bumblebee should talk though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
my voice. I think for me, if I did a Transformers short or a movie, I would cast Jack Black as Bumblebee.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I think Jack Black is what I've heard of. He's doing a movie right now where he's voicing Bowser for some Nintendo movie. It's a little
Bowser. Yeah, if you look at the G1 cartoon, Bumblebee was your connection to the Transformers. He was the one that was the most human, the most likable. He's the one that like Spike hangs around with all the time, right? And like they're like best friends. And like you need somebody who's like gregarious and fun-loving and kind of portly. So I think Bumblebee would have been I think Jack Black would have been a great choice for Bumblebee.
He really was a good pick for Poe for the Kung Fu Panda movies. Like, he really brought that character to life. But the next question is back to the topic. It says, we know that Megatron was originally supposed to turn into a dragon in The Last Knight. But then, what were the Knights supposed to transform into? Alien jets?
Can't really answer to that. I don't remember if they were supposed to turn into anything at all. Obviously, they do they turn into anything?
They're like a combiner. They all like merge.
They'll turn into a big dragon.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure about that one. I never really sort of... the dragons are a big motif. I could still see that being the same, like they wanted to be a big combiner dragon. But I know Michael Bay liked the idea of combiners, even if he didn't fully grasp what the combiners were in the Transformers universe before his participation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't really answer that one. I don't really know what they were supposed to turn into if they weren't supposed to turn into a dragon. There wasn't anything. I know that Megatron was supposed to turn into a dragon, and that changed because he wanted to have Optimus Prime have a dogfight with him.
Really?
Yeah.
That would have been really cool, actually.
I don't know how Optimus would have flown though.
The only thing I remember about Optimus taking flight is he basically had the Iron Man treatment with his boots or whatever. Because I remember in AoE he done that. The last night he did it again, but he didn't use it a lot.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there was supposed to be some sort of alternate mode where with he had like Jetfire parts again, but
you know, that's what I understood.
Yeah, there's definitely some changes and like some stuff taken out for sure.
Yeah. So the next question is, did Cogman, the butler character, originally supposed to kill Nitro Zeus and take his body, like the toy gimmick?
Yes, he's a headmaster. That's why he's small. So, I believe, from what I understand, Cogman is just the head of the larger robot, and he's like a butler. So he drives that car. I don't know why, because all Transformers can just drive themselves anyway. You don't really need the head to do it, but it's fun gimmick. And I'm not really sure whose idea that was. Maybe it was Hasbro's idea or whatever to like introduce headmasters, but he was indeed supposed to be a headmaster. That was like when I got on the project. That was what I had even heard on the internet. And yeah, so he was supposed to tear off Nitro Zeus's head, and he was supposed to be very feral, like when he fought, and he liked to tear heads off, and that was going to be a gimmick in the movie, was that he liked to tear heads off and become that.
I think they kind of teased that in the movie itself, where he's like threatening to hurt Cade and whatever in that one scenario. So
yeah,
that's kind of funny.
So yeah, so he does. He was supposed to be a little bit more feisty, which I think they just sort of downplayed, and he was going to be a headmaster. And I'm not sure why they changed cars partway through the movie, but that could have something to do with the gimmick that he had planned too.
The next question is, was the HMS Alliance, the submarine character, cut very on? Did she pass the control phase, or was it a scrap there?
I remember this. I remember the submarine. It was a small, sort of like bubble submarine or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall if they had ever planned on. I never saw any concepts of that being a robot, but that does happen. Like where you're not focused on everything in the movie, or like you have your thing to focus on, and other people have other things to focus on, and sometimes they don't really give us all the details. So if that was just supposed to be to turn into a robot, I could see that because of the way the submarine was designed. But I didn't see any, also generally something like that would be made into a toy, and I don't think they ever made that into a toy, did they? So I'm not sure if that one was ever supposed to actually, if that got past like the talking phase. But I never saw a robot being made of that one.
Okay. The next question here is, did the mini Dinobots have an origin story, where they come from, and were there any few more concept arts that depicts them coming from Day Trader, the dump truck transformer?
We are as lost as you. We were like, there's these baby dinosaurs with no explanation. We are just like, where do they come from? We had just as many questions as the viewers. We were like, nobody explained to us why these dinosaurs. We just had to make them.
Oh my god, it's like the Megatron all over again. Like he just popped into existence.
Yeah, it's a bit strange like that sometimes, where we don't really get all the answers, and like when you're working on a film like that, you are working on your compartments, so you don't get to see the whole film until it's made anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to start to put pieces together for the sequences that you're working on, but there are large sequences that you are completely new to you. So we did work on the junkyard scenes. We did work on the bots, like on the Dinobots, the baby Dinobots. But there was we were given no explanation as to why these things were in the film and how they came to be.
Yeah, my only 2 cents I'll say real quick is I remember when things were being progressively updated about TOK, you know, when pre-production was announced and stuff. I remember they said, "Oh, these are the writers from Iron Man 3," and personally, to me, Iron Man 3 wasn't terrible, but I was like,
I liked it. I like Shane Black.
yeah, I was willing to give them with the benefit of the doubt, but then I found out they were going for like some Transformers boot camp to learn more about Transformers. I'm like, that's a bit concerning. I don't know if that's a real source, but that was concerning at the time.
I didn't hear about that one, but that doesn't sound very good. But
yeah.
You know, the plot of the last night wasn't that good.
Yeah, TOK, like the action even felt more poor compared to the other 4 movies, in my opinion. Like Dark of the Moon had phenomenal action pieces.
I think Dark of the Moon is my favorite of all.
It was just personally my personal favorite because, like, it came out before Man of Steel, but I already saw Man of Steel, and then Sentinel Prime reminded me so much of General Zod. So much. And I thought that was a cool, like, reflection to look at. Because they're basically the same character, but from different universes.
Yeah.
So...
That's a good... Yeah, that's a good... That's well spotted.
So the next question is... They said that the film was originally over 3 hours long, which we discussed earlier, and it was cut down in the last minute. Ever heard this from Steve Jablonsky, the composer? Is it true?
Usually his movies are a lot longer and usually cut down. So I think it's just a massive amount of footage that he likes to collect and get from it. So they're usually quite large, and they usually sort of like try to take them down a bit so they can get reviews in the theater. So I think that's been the case with all. They've been longer than they should be. Yeah.
Next question is, was there any scenes that got drastically changed, for example, the location, the fate of the character, or anything like that? And this is related back to TOK.
Wait a second, is there any scene that was drastically changed?
Yes.
I would say probably yes. Okay, so there's a part of the movie you'll probably notice that like Marky Mark is all of a sudden he's in like England. All right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, how did he get there? You don't really see him fly there. But he's there, and I believe one of the scenes that they modified was, you'll notice in that scene where they finally meet Hot Rod.
Yeah.
And you know, at the castle, when they're taking away, and Hot Rod says, "I'll stop the time," and then shoots the time gun and everything. Just before that scene happens, there's this like old plane robot.
Yeah.
That just comes out of nowhere. He's like in like, I think he's literally only in one scene, and he just falls. He just like falls over, and you're like, who's this robot, and why did he just fall over? Like, there was no setup of him at all. There's like no explanation. I do believe we see the tank, right? We see the tank turn into the tank, and I believe there was an old like warplane, and that's that character that falls over. He's like an old like single engine fighter plane from the World War II, and I believe that there was supposed to be a little more of him. It's hard to tell like what changes because we don't get the story, right? Sometimes we do get the scripts, but those scripts are not for everybody. They're usually for producers, VFX supervisors, etc. Those usually don't filter down to us. So then we are basically, all the only changes that we really know about are running changes that happened with working on the show. So it's like, oh, you know, there was this and now it's not this anymore. What's going on? So yeah, or like the addition of robots. It's like, there's all of a sudden there's a crane. Like you see him in one of the scenes at the junkyard. It's like, how come they didn't get that guy to help him? Like, he's just, what's he doing? Does he have a story? Like, they show some like John Deere tractor thing turn into a robot, and you're like, what? Where? Why didn't they get him to help? He's an Autobot. Like, I don't understand. Like, wouldn't he be concerned that the planet could be destroyed by Unicron? And they're like, that's just for product placement. So, you know, the John Deere people have paid to have a robot in the movie, and it's purely just product placement.
Since we're talking about the whole what was drastically changed, something always stuck out to me when when Barricade was reintroduced in the last night. And
what did you think of the new Barricade?
I did like him, but it was just so jarring, like how different he was from his OG design. It would take time to get used to, for sure.
Yeah, I think I still prefer his older one. It was just more black. I like the long arms.
Same.
Like the long, lanky arms. It was, I don't know. I just think I liked it a little bit better. I didn't like Frenzy at all. I think that made any sense. But I really liked I still like the design of the new one. It would just been better if they had just sort of like made a different character.
Yeah, that's why I always felt like when it comes to the new Barricade, like I always kind of complained about it in a sense, like you could just slap another name on this character and it wouldn't even matter.
Exactly, you know, and like they don't really explain how Barricade survived or came back, so it's like, why not just call it a different character? Yeah. And like, why not call Blitzwing Starscream, because that's what he looks like.
Yeah. So the next one is, was there any scene that got cut that you wish stayed? If so, what scenes are those?
I don't believe there was any scenes that I worked on that were cut. So they were all in there. So in terms of my scope of the movie and, you know, what I was aware of, everything went through. So, which is great. That usually happens anyway. I would have liked to have seen more Hot Rod footage, though. I would have liked to have seen Hot Rod featured a tiny bit more. He was like, even if you skim through the movie and try to find like good shots of him or like good action or whatever, it's just not there. He stops the time a couple times in the movie, and that seems to be his big thing, which is a little weird, but not as weird as his accents. I really don't understand why Transformers who are new to Earth would choose to give themselves a voice where they're having trouble with English. It just doesn't make sense to me. But
here's the next question. Do you have any concerns about the upcoming Rise of the Beast film, since it won't be done by ILM, but by MPC?
I will just say, we've got a lot of homies at ILM, and it's the same people that have done all the films. They're just like, they're unparalleled. These people are the very best that I've ever worked with. I've worked in so many studios, planet, and by far ILM is the most talented group as a whole. I'm not saying that individually that there aren't super talented people that should be at ILM or are the same caliber. So not knowing who's working on the film in MPC, it's really hard to say, because there could be some real gems there. But I will say that my personal bar is lower. I definitely wouldn't expect to see the same top-notch stuff that I would expect from. And that's not from like artists specifically, but that's more of a management thing. That's more of an MPC thing, where I think that MPC is very good at doing big movies with lots of CG in it. I think they're good at getting that done. So I do expect it a lot of CG in it. Whether that's good or bad, it's up to you. But I think it will be. I think the quality will probably come down, but you might see more of it.
Okay. The last question is, and there will be a couple more, but the last one is, what do you think about the fan film that we are doing, trying to make closure to the cliffhanger the last night end up making?
I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. I think if you guys pull it off, it's going to be the best fan film ever made.
All right, so there's these other set of questions that I have here. Now I have some questions from Laszlo's followers, and he hopes that you don't mind them.
I definitely won't mind them. I'll try to answer them the best I can. But
okay, cool. Here's the first one. How did you feel about the direction The Last Night was going while you worked on the film?
So when you're working on a film, there are small compartments that you're working on, and you see these sequences over and over. You see them at a very rough stage, and then you see them to start to like form into what they are, like they're giant big set pieces, and you don't really get a lot of the story. You get mostly just the sort of like the really heavy VFX parts. So as those are happening, for the fourth movie, The Age of Extinction, we were working on the worm going through the building scene, which is just, I think, one of the most mind-blowing scenes out of the entire franchise. Very, very exciting. The building's falling over, they're sliding down. That was really exciting. You're sitting there watching it going like, this is phenomenal. This is so good. This is exactly what people are going to pay to see.
I really like the part where that boat was collapsing down and stuff. That was really sick.
It's just incredible. And then you see other stuff, like, we were developing, watching them say like, no, we don't want to transform these bad guys. We want them to sort of like, we want to transform them. We want little bubbles and sand. And we're just like, that's not a good idea. That's just not, that crowd's going to hate that. You know that everyone's going to hate this.
It's funny.
Like, there's nothing you can do about it because you're not paying for it, right? You're paid to do the work.
The next question is, I've always wanted to know what went into the process of designing the robots. If they primarily do they keyframe animation for the robots, or is it motion capture, or both?
To actually make the robots move?
It said, I always wanted to know what went into the process of designing the robots, if they primarily do keyframe animation for the robots, or is it motion capture, or both?
Okay, well, in a very, very quick nutshell, obviously we go from designing the stage with the concepts to modeling them, to texturing and look deving them, and then rigging them so that they can actually move. And then generally, yes, there's a lot of sort of like mocap and traditional animation. A good significant portion of it is actually keyframe animated by, I guess up until this point was the ILM animators who are actually the best in the world. So they generally would do a lot of keyframe information, even if they have motion capture, which they have the studio down in the basement. That stuff always needs to be cleaned up anyway and fine-tuned for terms of performance. And then obviously when you're turning into a truck or something, or you're flipping yourself in the air and turning into a car, a mocap person can't do that. So that's when the animator has to sort of like step in and make it happen. So so there's a number of things that goes into it, and it's quite a lengthy process to make those robots do what they do. But does that answer the question?
Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with that. There's other ones. We're nearly done. The next question is, what decided which concept art made it into the film? Any scrap concepts that you wanted to illustrate but didn't get a chance to? And how much GF knowledge you had going into the production work?
So the first part of that question is, they usually have quite a lot of art. for each of the characters. Different versions, different variations of like heads or something. But they will reach out to somebody like Josh Nitze, who's
amazing.
Fantastic artist, fantastic. And they reach out to a number of these people to, develop that idea, and like it's usually really, really close, and like we nail it. Often, sometimes ideas get made and they don't get put into the movie. Like for instance, KSI Boss, I don't think really made it into the movie, but then he ended up being turned into Nitro Zeus.
And I think the last question in the middle of this was how much Transformer knowledge you had going into the production?
Personally, I sort of go in and out. So like when it comes to the toys, I have like 4,500 toys. Oh, I've got a large collection and a U-Haul that I store them all in because I don't have, I've got Wheeljack mint in the box from 1984, and I've got the walking self-transforming Optimus Prime. I've got Raiden, the 6 train, all in their boxes. Like I've got some rare stuff. I've got some really great pieces, and I have a large understanding of the toys. When it comes to the comics, I only read the ones from the 80s. I didn't read the IDW ones, and so there's a large gap in knowledge. I also caught up on most of the television shows as well. So I usually like to catch up on anything that I can view, not necessarily read. So going into it, I had a larger understanding than, say, your typical, producer or visual effects supervisor that weren't really knowledgeable about Transforms at all. But then I wouldn't have as much information as, say, somebody like you or people that read the comics and books and other stuff too. So like I knew enough about things like Dark Energon and to make some like good decisions for the movie, and that was helpful because it was me and another guy, Tim Odell, who's another brilliant artist who textured Cogman and Optimus, and like he's brilliant. He's got a great knowledge as well about Transformers. So the two of us were the ones that we'd win all the trivia questions that they would give about Transformers, because they would like give everybody that working on the show some trivia. Can I show you a couple of things from ILM?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay. So at ILM, they do some fun things, like they give you this. So when you're working on an ILM, they have like trivia questions and stuff like that. And if you win, they give you like money that you can spend in the coffee shop, which was called Java the Hut. And so you can spend it there. But this is like so this is kind of fun to have because you win a trivia or you do something nice, they give you like these like dollars. And then also when the show's over, they give you these amazing pins. So there's like this is one from the 4th movie, and then this is one of Squeaks that they gave us for like the last night.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool, actually.
Yeah, so we had we won a few of these dollars because we had like the most knowledge of Transformers going into it. So they would also like ask us a lot about things, and just if we saw something, we said they're the kind of company that would listen to a good idea. And if you said, hey, it would be good if we did this because it's like this in the comic or for the toy or something like that, they'll definitely listen to you. So they're really, really good about that. And they really, really want to make the best movie possible for you.
Okay. The next question we're going into is, are there any renderings of Cogman using the abilities of the Master?
I do not think so. And if there are, you probably will never see them. Yeah, well, rendering, you won't ever see it because there was never a model of him made into a head because they scrapped the idea before that happened. So there definitely wouldn't be any scene or anything that you could see of him actually doing that. But it was just like I think it was in the script, and somewhere they might have drawn to see what that looks like, but I think that was scrapped very early.
Okay. The next one is, are there any deleted scenes that come to your mind, but that haven't seen the light of day, like that dancing Autobot scene from Age of Extinction?
The only thing I would say is sometimes there's bloopers, like when animators are submitting something, they sometimes like renders will go funny, and then we'll get to see them as like a sort of a blooper reel. And those can be really fun to see, like, what happens when renders go bad, and like pieces of robots start to fly off or get larger, or like somebody like crushes instead of walking, or some really funny things happen. And sometimes they show that just for a laugh. It's usually internal. It's not like a section of the movie that they would put in or something. So I would say maybe bloopers somewhere down the line. You may see something like that, but generally that stuff is archived like when the show is done. So if you don't see it like on a Blu-ray or something like that, you're probably not going to see it.
These were all the questions. I want to thank you for taking your time answering all these questions.
And, thank you.
To anyone watching, where can we find you and your works on social media?
I'm working on a project now that I've been working on for the past 30 years, like in the background, but now I'm making it like my main focus. And that project is called Strange Octopus. It's very early on, so there's not a lot of stuff you can see on it. There is an Instagram, but it's very, very early. But what I would probably do is I'll give you a link to my Linktree, which you can post for your viewers, and I'll definitely keep everybody up to date with what's latest and greatest on that in that section.
Okay. Well, that was everything. I want to thank you for taking your time and everything.
My pleasure.
Being here, and it was, obviously, in the behalf of Laszlo, it was just, a great honor to meet someone that works and have worked. I always wanted to meet the man, but this is the coolest part. I actually get to meet someone with him, so that's big. But yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
We're gonna go ahead and end the interview here, and
cool. And good luck with your project too. Rise the Unicron. Looking forward to it. All right. Take care. Thanks a lot.